The roar of engines reverberated through Earth's capital as Captain Mira Stone stood at the helm of the flagship, Aegis, gazing out at the alien fleet hovering in the void. It was the calm before the storm, an unsettling stillness that filled her chest with a hollow weight. Beyond the shimmering atmosphere of Earth, colossal ships, like specters of doom, loomed in space. The Council of 10 had made their arrival known, and their demands were as unyielding as the ships they commanded. "Captain, the Council's ambassador is requesting to speak," came the voice of Lieutenant Hawk from behind her, his tone tense, reflecting the gravity of the moment. Mira turned, her eyes dark with the weight of responsibility. She nodded, stepping away from the panoramic viewport and toward the communications terminal. "Patch it through," she replied, her voice steady but carrying the subtle strain of the moment. The screen flickered before stabilizing, revealing an alien figure, humanoid, with skin the color of pale granite, eyes piercing and unsettlingly calm. Behind the figure, the insignia of the Council gleamed, a symbol of totalitarian power. Mira swallowed, her hands instinctively gripping the edge of the terminal. This was the moment the world had feared. "Captain Stone," the ambassador's voice cut through the silence, smooth and almost disinterested. "The Council has reviewed your planet's records, and we find your species' continued resistance unnecessary. Surrender now, or face eradication." The words were cold, final. As if the destruction of Earth were no more than a matter of course. Mira could feel her heart thudding in her chest. The ambassador's tone, so devoid of any empathy or urgency, only reinforced the terrifying truth: Earth's survival, its very place in the cosmos, hinged on her decisions over the next few hours. "Eradication?" Mira's voice barely cracked the tension. "Your offer seems generous. Why should we believe a word you say?" The ambassador's lips twitched in a smile, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. "You misunderstand. This is not an offer. It is a decree. Submit, or we will erase you." Mira held her breath, her mind whirring. The Council of 10 had never backed down, never offered mercy. Legends of their dominance over countless worlds were common knowledge, and now those stories had found their way to Earth's doorstep. "We are not your property," Mira snapped, every ounce of defiance in her words. She could feel her crew, her people, rallying behind her, their hopes hanging on her every move. But she knew, her pride alone would not be enough to protect them. The ambassador's eyes narrowed, his voice growing colder. "If you continue to resist, you will have only yourselves to blame for the suffering that will follow." He flicked the hand, and the screen abruptly cut out, leaving Mira alone with the echo of his chilling message. She exhaled sharply, her fingers twitching in the silence. Commander Dorian Phoenix, her closest confidant, appeared beside her. His face was grim, his usual stoic expression replaced with one of frustration. "They won't stop, Mira. You know what they're capable of." His voice was low, but the tension in it was unmistakable. Dorian was a fighter, his heart belonged to Earth's military, and he had seen countless skirmishes in his life. But this was different. This was an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. Mira nodded, her gaze still fixed on the spot where the ambassador had stood moments before. "If they truly intend to annihilate us, we can't hesitate. We need to prepare for war. But we don't have the firepower, Mira." Dorian's voice softened, a touch of fear creeping in. "No one does. The Council has technology we can't even begin to understand." She turned to face him, her eyes hardening with determination. "Then we'll make them understand who we are. Earth doesn't bow to anyone, not now, not ever." A silence settled between them, thick with unspoken understanding. Earth, humanity, had always fought for survival, for their right to exist. It was their nature, their core. And Mira knew that no matter what came next, the Council would regret underestimating humanity. The alarms blared suddenly, cutting through the tension. A transmission. Mira quickly tapped the console, and another message from the Council flashed across the screen, this time with a stark visual: their fleet moving into Earth's orbit. The enormity of the task ahead suddenly hit her. Earth was a single world, and against a galactic empire, it seemed insignificant. "Captain," the the fleet is advancing. We're out of time, Hawk's voice cracked over the comms. Mira closed her eyes for a moment, drawing a steadying breath. When she opened them again, her resolve had solidified, as had the course of action. She turned to Dorian, her voice filled with quiet strength. Prepare for battle. Gather every fleet we have. Earth's future depends on us now. And with that, she knew that the war for humanity's survival was about to begin. Myra's hands trembled slightly as she stood before the war room's central console. The Council's fleet was now fully in orbit above Earth, their dark silhouettes blotting out the stars. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity, and each passing second was one step closer to war. The reality of the situation had settled deep within her bones. Earth had no choice but to fight or be wiped out. Captain, incoming message, Hawk's voice came through the comms, sharp and anxious. Mira inhaled, forcing calm into her breath before nodding. Patch it through. The screen flickered to life, and the same alien figure appeared, this time more imposing, its silhouette framed by a black void. The ambassador's presence sent a chill down her spine. There was no urgency in his voice, only the cold certainty of a conqueror. Captain Stone, he said, his voice like polished ice. You continue to resist, though you know it is futile. You have made your decision. I hope you understand the consequences of your actions. She squared her shoulders. We've made our decision. If you want Earth, you'll have to take it. The ambassador's lips curved into a thin, mirthless smile. I was hoping you would say that. But make no mistake, your defiance will be costly. I will give you one final chance to surrender, or the annihilation will begin. Your resistance only makes the destruction of your species inevitable. The screen cut out before she could respond, leaving an eerie silence in the wake. Mira didn't need to hear any more. The Council had spoken, and now it was up to humanity to decide whether they would fight for their survival. Dorian Phoenix's voice echoed through the tense air, a low growl of frustration. What now, Mira? Do we really want to take them on? They have technology beyond anything we've ever seen. We'll be slaughtered. Myra's gaze was fixed on the cold black void outside the window, her mind spinning with 1,000 thoughts. We fight. We have no choice. Is that your final word? Dorian's tone was sharp, skeptical. His hand rested on the railing beside her, his fingers clenched tightly. The man had always been the pragmatist, cautious, calculated. And while she valued his advice, this was not a time for hesitation. I don't see another option. Mira met his gaze, her jaw tight with resolve. If we surrender, we're finished. There's no negotiating with them. Their offer was a lie, a trap. They've wiped out entire civilizations before, what makes us think they'll treat us differently? Dorian rubbed his face, conflicted. You're right, but it's not just the military we need to worry about. We need to get our people to safety, fortify the cities. This isn't just about fighting in space. The enormity of what they were facing settled on Mira like a weight she could not escape. Earth's defense fleets were formidable, but they had no experience facing an enemy like the Council. No one did. They were about to throw everything they had into the unknown. Let's assume we have a chance, Dorian, she said, her voice low but firm. We need to buy time. I'll contact General Vasquez. If we can mobilize the reserves and fortify our positions, we may just stand a chance. But we cannot show weakness. We can't give them any indication that we're scared. Dorian stepped back, his eyes dark with the weight of the decision. If you're wrong. I won't be, Mira interrupted, her words sharp. We have something they don't, unity. We fight together, or we fall alone. The command bridge fell into a heavy silence, the sound of soft beeping consoles filling the space. Mira turned, facing the crew who stood at attention, waiting for her command. Their faces were a mixture of determination and fear, but none of them looked away. Prepare for full mobilization, she ordered. Activate the fleet. I want every ship ready for launch within the hour. We can't afford to wait any longer. Understood, Captain, Hawk's voice responded instantly. We'll have the fleets prepped and in position. As the crew moved to carry out her orders, Mira felt the familiar weight of command settle in. She didn't have the luxury of second-guessing herself anymore. The time for indecision had passed. A deep hum filled the room, the ship's engines powering up, and Mira could feel the tremor beneath her feet. The Aegis was alive, responding to her command with a hum of purpose. She turned back to the viewport, staring out at the alien ships. The distance between them seemed to stretch on forever, but it was closing fast. Her heart beat a little faster, a pulse of adrenaline running through her veins. The countdown had begun. "Captain," Dorian said, his voice hesitant. "What if they're right? What if we're outmatched?" Myra's eyes never left the looming alien vessels. "Then we die trying." She turned toward him, locking eyes with her closest ally, the man who had fought beside her for years. "We die standing, Dorian. That's the only way." And with that, the order was given. Earth would fight. The battle was inevitable. Mira had known at the moment the Council's ultimatum was delivered. But as she stood at the command console of the Aegis, watching Earth's skies fill with the silhouettes of the enemy fleet, the weight of the situation pressed down harder than she expected. A sharp, steady hum filled the air as the ship's systems came to life, the bridge alive with the frantic energy of a crew preparing for war. The stakes had never been higher. "Captain, fleet status," Hawk's voice cut through her thoughts, sharp and alert. Mira turned, her gaze steady. "What's the word?" "All ships are in position," Hawk confirmed, his eyes flicking over the tactical readouts. "We're ready, Captain. But we need to know, what's the plan?" Myra's hand hovered over the tactical display, but she didn't answer immediately. The Council's ships were unlike anything humanity had ever faced. They were vast, their hulls shimmering with an unfamiliar metallic sheen that seemed to absorb the very light around them. No one knew their true power, only the rumors of worlds they had razed to the ground. The size of their fleet made Earth's forces appear like ants under a magnifying glass. She could feel the eyes of her crew on her, waiting for her to make the call. They trusted her. She couldn't afford to fail them now. "Attack formations. We strike at their flanks, force them to split their forces," she said, her voice tight but firm. "We have to hit them hard before they regroup and bring their full strength to bear." Dorian, standing at the rear of the bridge, spoke up. "You want to bait them into splitting? That's risky. If we miscalculate, we'll be surrounded." "I know," Mira replied, turning to face him. "But if we don't move quickly, we'll be sitting ducks. This is our best shot." The tension in Dorian's face deepened, but he nodded. He understood as well as she did. Every choice from here on out was a gamble. Earth's future rested on the razor's edge. "All ships, execute Plan Alpha 1, Mira barked, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Move out, and may God help us." The Aegis shuddered as it accelerated, moving into position at the head of the fleet. Myra's grip tightened on the console, her knuckles white. Outside the viewports, Earth's skies seemed to tremble, the massive alien fleet above like an inescapable cloud of doom. Moments passed in agonizing silence, the tension building as the ships moved closer to their opponents. The first strike would define everything. And then, as if on cue, the warning alarms blared. "Incoming fire! Shields up!" Hawk shouted. The first salvo came in fast and furious, energy blasts streaking across space, slamming into Earth's shield grid. The ship rocked violently as the Aegis absorbed the impact, the sound of the shield screeching under the strain like a dying animal. Myra's stomach lurched as the magnitude of the firepower they were facing became all too real. "Return fire," she commanded, her voice a snap of steel. The Aegis unleashed a barrage of energy missiles, targeting the largest enemy ship in the lead. The missiles detonated against the alien craft's shields, leaving only a ripple in the shield surface before it quickly recovered. "They're stronger than we thought," Dorian muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the screen as the enemy returned fire with even more intensity. Myra's mind raced. The plan was falling apart faster than she could process. The enemy's shields were far more resilient than expected, their firepower nearly overwhelming. If they didn't think of something fast, they would be torn apart. "All ships, fall back," Mira ordered. "Pull out of formation and scatter. We need to regroup." It was too late. The enemy fleet had already begun to close in, their ships moving with eerie precision, locking onto their targets with laser accuracy. Mira slammed her fist against the console, a flash of frustration overtaking her. "Damn it. We're too predictable." Suddenly, the bridge lights flickered and the system's alarm blared again, even louder than before. "Captain, there's an energy buildup in the enemy's flagship," Hawk reported, his voice shaking. "They're charging a massive weapon." Myra's heart skipped a beat. What kind of weapon? But there was no time for an answer. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the flagship, its energy beams slicing through the darkness. The beam struck one of Earth's forward fleets, and Myra's breath caught as the ship evaporated in a flash of pure energy, reduced to nothing but scattered debris. "Hold the line!" Mira screamed, her voice cracking with urgency. "We can't let them do that again." But the Aegis was already moving, its engines flaring as they attempted to dodge the incoming barrage. Every crew member on the bridge tensed, every eye locked on the viewport, as the enemy's weapons swung toward them. A silence followed, a deep, suffocating silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Then, the ship jolted as the first beam of light made contact. Myra's world collapsed in a burst of light. The blast from the enemy flagship slammed into the Aegis, a blinding wave of energy sweeping through the ship. The bridge lights flickered and then went dark, the alarms blaring as the crew scrambled to maintain control. Myra's hands shot out instinctively, grasping the edge of the console as the floor buckled beneath her. Her heart pounded, her vision narrowing to the shock waves of destruction unfolding on the view screen. "Status report," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos. The bridge was a mess, smoke curling from the damaged panels, sparks popping from the overhead circuits. The crew worked frantically, their faces pale, but their determination unyielding. Hawk, ever the steady hand, was already at his station, his fingers flying over the controls. "Shields are down to 30%, Hawk said, gritting his teeth. "We've lost the starboard engine. Repair crews are on it, but it'll take too long. We're sitting ducks." Myra's chest tightened. She could feel it in her bones, they were being cornered. Outside the Aegis, the enemy fleet was tightening its grip, their advanced weapons pressing forward like a swarm of hungry predators. Earth's ships were scattered, some already in pieces, others retreating in disarray. It felt like the entire galaxy was watching, waiting for humanity to fall. But Mira had never been the kind to give up, even when the odds were impossible. "Get me a comm to the fleet," she said. "Now." A few tense moments passed before the screen before her flickered to life, showing the battered but still functional faces of Earth's remaining commanders. Dorian's face was stoic, though his eyes betrayed a mixture of desperation and grim resolve. "Mira," he said, his voice calm despite the situation. "We've lost more than half our fleet. They're too strong. We need to fall back, regroup." "No," Mira said, her voice sharp. "We can't. Not now. If we retreat, we're giving up Earth. I won't let that happen." There was silence on the other end. The grim reality of their situation was clear. Earth's forces were on the brink of collapse. But Mira wasn't done fighting. "Then what do you propose, Captain?" Dorian asked, his brow furrowed, but there was a glint in his eye now, a spark of something she hadn't seen before. "We're outgunned, outmatched." Myra's gaze shifted to the tactical display. The enemy flagship was still there, a massive behemoth, its weapon charging again. The vulnerability in its attack pattern was obvious now, every time it fired, it had to cool its core. And right now, the enemy wasn't taking advantage of their fleet's mobility. They were overcommitting. The enemy was too focused on the direct attack, leaving gaps in their formation. "Dorian, we're going to make them regret ever underestimating us," she said, her tone confident now, sharper than before. Prepare your ship to engage at close range. We're going to hit them where it hurts. There was a long pause. Dorian's face remained unreadable, but Mira knew what he was thinking. He was as scared as she was, but he trusted her. All right, Captain. We'll follow your lead. Mira turned to her crew. Everyone, brace yourselves. This is going to be one hell of a fight. The Aegis lurched as the emergency systems kicked in. Myra's fingers danced over the console, her mind focused entirely on the task ahead. A slight hum vibrated through the ship as it accelerated, the hull straining under the pressure. The enemy fleet hadn't noticed yet. The timing had to be perfect. Mira, are you sure about this? Hawk asked, his voice tense. We're going right into their firing range. We don't have a choice, she replied, locking eyes with him. Trust me. The only way to win is to make them think we're desperate enough to die fighting. They'll let their guard down. We'll never get close enough, Hawk warned. Their weapons. Just give me one shot, Mira interrupted. That's all we need. The Aegis rocketed forward, dodging blasts that tore through the void behind them. Myra's breath came in shallow bursts, each turn, each move, a calculated risk. The tension was palpable, the air on the bridge thick with it. Every fiber of her being was focused on the flagship, the ultimate target. Then, it came into view. The enemy flagship, its enormous shape illuminated by the glow of its weapons charge, loomed like a mountain in front of them. Mira could almost feel the heat from its weapon building in the air. Time slowed. Her hand hovered over the trigger. Then, she made her move. Target their core, she ordered, her voice steady, her finger pushing the button that would unleash Earth's last chance. The Aegis surged forward at full speed, firing every weapon it had left at the enemy flagship's exposed core. The first few shots ricocheted off the shields, but then, there was a flash. The flagship's core reactor exploded in a burst of light so intense it temporarily blinded the crew. A deep rumble filled the Aegis as the shockwave hit them. Mira gripped the console, bracing herself for the impact. And then, silence. For a moment, it felt as if the entire universe had paused, holding its breath. Myra's heart hammered in her chest. Was it enough? Had they really done it? Then, slowly, the view screen cleared, revealing the enemy flagship, fractured, smoking, and burning. The fleet began to falter, confusion spreading among their ranks. But Mira knew this wasn't over yet. It was only the beginning.